Hey guys, how are you? It's good to see you. I'm sorry I missed you last weekend. I've actually been working on a pretty fun project for TikTok. That's right, you can now find me on TikTok. And what am I gonna be doing? Well, I'm not gonna be doing any dancing, that's for sure. Although some of those videos are pretty awesome. I'm gonna be sharing cooking tips and cooking hacks and really delicious, fabulous recipes that you can make with 3 to 5 ingredients or less. So that certainly will make your lives easier, right? And if you're not on TikTok, don't worry about it. You can also follow me on Instagram and I'll be sharing many of the tips over there too. All right, so I thought it was time we got to a classic blueberry muffin recipe. But I also find that sometimes I want just a sugary, fattening muffin, and sometimes I want a healthy muffin. So I wanted to share with you 2 recipes. So depending on how you're feeling at the moment, you can either be naughty or nice, or both. If you ask my kids, they would say the healthy muffin is the naughty muffin. The unhealthy one is the nice one. All right, let me show you how to make both. All right, let's start with the classic decadent muffin. The first thing we're gonna do is add 2 eggs into a large bowl. And then we're also gonna add 3/4 cup of white sugar. Now you could use brown sugar too if you prefer. You're just gonna get a more dense muffin. Sometimes I like to use brown sugar, especially if I'm doing like an apple muffin or something for the fall. Brown sugar can add a ton of flavor. But in these muffins, we're gonna use the white sugar because it's going to help the muffins become really light and moist and delectable. That's what you get with the white sugar. And then for a little added flavor, we're also gonna do a teaspoon of vanilla extract. And then for our fat, we're gonna do 3/4 cup of butter. I really like to mix the fats, especially if you know me by now, you know that I like to do this. I do butter for the flavor, and then I like to do a little bit of oil for the moisture because it makes it really light and fluffy. So I have here a 1/4 cup of vegetable oil, but you could also use grapeseed oil, you could use corn oil. Probably just wouldn't use olive oil. That would be a little bit too heavy for this. All right, so then we're just gonna mix this up. And you wanna make sure that the butter is cooled, just so it doesn't scramble those eggs. Okay, so now for our dry ingredients. I have a 1.75 cups of all-purpose flour here in a bowl, and then I'm going to add 2 teaspoons of baking powder. So typically the rule of thumb is 1 teaspoon of baking powder to every cup of flour. That's just sort of a good thing to keep in mind. But I don't like to put the 2 full cups of flour in the muffins because I like a really light muffin recipe, which is why we're gonna bake with muffin papers. Because when you have a very light muffin, they don't have a ton of structure to them, so they can be a little light and crumbly. So I say use the muffin papers, and that gives them a lot of support. Oh, and then I just added 1/2 teaspoon of salt. Then we're just gonna add our dry ingredients to our wet ingredients, a little bit at a time. And we don't want to overmix because we don't want a tough muffin. And I'm using my favorite new gadget, the Danish dough whisk. You've probably seen me use this. It's really fabulous for mixing up any types of muffin recipes, dough recipes, because it just is a gentle whisk that will prevent you from overmixing. I just think they're really great. They're in my Amazon shop if you want to know where to get it. Wait a minute, I forgot something. We also want to add a 1/2 cup of water. I haven't gone too far with this, so I'm just gonna add it right in, maybe in sections. The water is going to give these muffins a lot of moisture and lightness as well. And if you've followed a lot of my muffin recipes, you know that I like to do this. I find that it's better than milk, although you can add milk, but milk has fat in it. So milk is gonna kind of weigh the muffin down a little bit, in my opinion, where water will give you the moisture without the weight. If you don't believe me, you have to try my banana bread recipe because that's a big part of that recipe, and people always remark how light and fluffy it is, and I always say it's the water. One thing you want to do before you put all the berries in is reserve a few for the tops. You'll see what we'll do with them in a minute. Okay, then I have about 1.25 cups of blueberries that I've just tossed in, and you want to fold these in gently just so they don't all get crushed on you. And yes, you could use frozen blueberries if you have that, that's great too. I would just mix them in straight from the freezer. So don't defrost them, because if you defrost them, they'll start to release a lot of their liquid, and then you'll end up with like purple batter. Ever seen that? When they start to like leak out the liquid. So it's better just to pop them in frozen and stir kind of like what I'm doing here. Okay, our batter is done. So today we are making jumbo muffins in my jumbo muffin tin here. Oh, for the simple fact that I ran out of these papers and I only had the jumbo ones. But this recipe will make either 12 regular size muffins or 6 jumbos, okay? And sometimes I feel like, I don't know, if you're gonna have a muffin, right? The jumbos are like really generous. So I like them, I think they're great. Then I'm going to use an ice cream scoop to scoop out this muffin batter. And you want to do at least 2 scoops per well. The reason why I love a ice cream scoop with muffin batter, you end up getting equal portions. And when you have equal portion batter in a tin like this, they're all going to bake at the same rate. And when things bake at the same rate, they're all done at the same time. And they also, I think, look prettier that way because you get a lot of uniformity in the size. So I know we already put a bunch of sugar inside, but I do like to put it on the top too because I find it'll give you a really nice crunch. So I'm just using regular white sugar. Then we're going to take our reserved berries and we're going to place them on top. I do about 2 or 3 depending on how many are peeking through. The reason why I do this is after the muffins are baked, I really love to see berries on the top of a muffin that are sort of bursting and turning all purpley. I think there's something really beautiful about it. And you don't get that unless you put the berries on top right before you bake. Otherwise they get too sunken in to the middle. Place your muffins in a 375-degree Fahrenheit oven just until they're golden brown and those berries are bubbling and bursting. Perfect. Oh, these look so yummy. Okay, let me cut into them so you can see what they look like. And see how soft and delicate the crumb is? Let's just give it a try, shall we? Oh, those are good. Those are really good. They're like a little cake, you know, like a little blueberry cake. They remind me of those coffee shop muffins that you get right now. If you can't hang out at your local coffee shop, you can bring the coffee shop to you and whip up a batch of these muffins. They're so delicious. Okay, so that's the treat. Let's do the healthier version next. These muffins have no eggs, no butter, we're gonna use a different fat, and very low sugar. We're only gonna be using natural sugar. So the first thing we wanna do is figure out our egg replacement, and you've got 3 different ways to go. So for any recipe that calls for an egg, you can replace it with 1 ripe banana. So because for muffins I usually like to use 2 eggs, we're going to use 2 ripe bananas. But if you're not a banana fan, not to worry, you can also use applesauce. So you can use a 1/4 cup of applesauce for every egg called in a recipe. The nice thing, moms, if you have these little pots at home, you feed them to your kids, this is exactly a 1/2 cup. So you would just use a full little pot of this, or a 1/2 cup for 2 eggs. Or you can also use flaxseed meal and create a flax egg. So flaxseed meal comes like this in a little bag, and basically what it is ground flaxseed. So it just looks like this. It's a sort of a powdery substance. And the way you would make a flax egg is you would take 1 tablespoon of the flaxseed meal and you would add 3 tablespoons of water. And then what you want to do is whisk this up and let it stand for 5 minutes. And basically what that will do is sort of activate the flaxseed because they get kind of like gelatinous, and that's what's going to bind all of our ingredients together. So basically that's what the egg does in most recipes. It's a binding agent, but any of these substitutions would work in this recipe, so you just pick whatever you like best and go with that. Okay, now let's talk sugar. So the banana, especially if it's ripe, has a lot of natural sugars, but I often find it's not exactly enough to get you there. So I like to add a little bit of natural sugar into this recipe. I prefer honey. I think honey gives just the best flavor without being too sweet. You could also use maple syrup. I find though that the maple syrup adds a lot of sweetness. So if you're somebody who's really trying to cut down on the sugar, I think honey is the way to go. And you can get a lot more nutrients in honey if you picked raw honey. I love raw honey. It's my new favorite thing. So raw honey is not filtered or processed the way that regular honey is. So what it does is it retains a lot of the nutrients and antioxidants when you get the raw honey. So we're gonna do 3 to 4 tablespoons. I say that because if your bananas were not very ripe, or if you have a sweet tooth, then I would do a full 1/4 cup. If you have really ripe bananas, then just do 3 tablespoons and that should be fine. And then for a little more flavor, we're also going to do a teaspoon of vanilla extract. So now for the fat. So we're not going to use butter in this recipe. Instead, I really like to use coconut oil. I think it's really great in baking, to be honest. So if you're not familiar with coconut oil, it actually comes as a solid like this. But then when you melt it, you can melt it over a stovetop. You can melt it in the microwave. It becomes liquefied like this, see, which is perfectly pourable for baking. So we're going to add a 1/2 cup of the coconut oil. Then we're gonna do my water trick. So for this recipe, I'm gonna use a full cup. I also like to use warm water because when you pour it over the coconut oil, if it's cold, that coconut oil will seize back up and become solid on you again. So it's better to keep it warm, and as you can see, it's not seizing up, it's just staying a liquid. And then we're just going to whisk this up, and this is it for our wet ingredients. Okay, so we can set this aside and get to the dry ingredients. You could absolutely use gluten-free flour. I would use the same amount, 1.5 cups, as what I'm using here, which is whole wheat flour. So now we are going to fold in our berries. So we're going to do the same amount of blueberries. And I also like to add some unsweetened coconut, just for a little bit more texture and natural sweetness. Now that our muffins are all filled, you can set this aside, and then I like to also put a little bit of topping on this muffin. So we're not going to use the straight sugar. Instead, we're going to use a oatmeal blend. So here I have 1/4 cup of just old-fashioned oats. To that, I'm going to add a tablespoon of the coconut oil, just in there like that. Then for a little bit of sweetness, we're going to use some date sugar. So this is another great sugar alternative. If you don't know of it, it's basically just finely ground sweet natural dates. It provides a really great sweetness, almost like brown sugar. And I find it's also great sprinkled on top of some cooked oatmeal. And then for a little bit more flavor, a pinch of ground cinnamon. And there like that. That's all you have to do. Then we are going to just whisk this up. And then we're going to pop this on top of our muffins. My husband, he loves these muffins. It's super funny because when we're nearing like the last batch of them, he'll be like, "Don't tell the kids, I'm taking the last muffin." I always laugh because they don't like these muffins. But I don't say anything. I say, "Oh yeah, okay, I won't tell them." Because he enjoys them so much. I don't want to disparage them in any way. So in the oven, they're gonna go at 375 degrees Fahrenheit for about 30 to 35 minutes. Okay, look at this. You can see all of the blueberries and the oats. It's so delicious. So you can see the texture is a lot denser, but it's loaded with nutrients, you know? Texture is kind of like clafouti in a weird way. I know it sounds weird. Oh, so good. Kind of like a banana pudding in some way. It's definitely a lot less sweet. So you definitely taste the healthy sugars. If you are used to eating regular muffins for breakfast, this could be a shock to the system because they're just healthier. It's natural sugar, but I think they're delicious. And if you're looking for something that is low sugar, no eggs, healthier fat, you can't go wrong with this. So you guys give both of them a try. Let me know what you think, and I'll see you back here next week. And hopefully I'll see a few of you over on TikTok. We'll have some fun over there with some cooking hacks and tips and super easy recipes. I'm talking like 5 ingredients or less. All right, you guys, till next time.